All right, moms and dads, today we're talking a little bit about birth trauma. So let's define that. Birth trauma is any injury or trauma, usually physical, that is going to occur during the labor or the delivery process. Commonly, these can lead to lifelong health challenges, disabilities, and neurological problems. And that's an important thing to think about. Birth trauma doesn't always have to be worst of the worst. There could be differing levels of severity. And from my perspective, and a lot of other people that I speak to quite often, and we look at a lot of neurological implications of this with kids, is we think birth trauma is a pretty causative factor in a lot of the chronic illnesses that we see kids developing today. Many of the things that they start off with, they will then grow into other things. Instead of growing out of this, and now I have this, and I grow out of that, and now I have that. Think of it as kind of a stepwise dysfunction throughout the nervous system of one thing leading to another. And I see a lot of that, and it's important to catch it and catch it early. So here's a couple things, got my list again, that you can look for that we've seen some pretty heavy correlations with birth trauma. It can be difficulty latching, nursing, or breastfeeding. I know that that's one big thing that a lot of new moms are worried about and thinking if it's something that they're not doing right. And a lot of times that some of this birth trauma period can get misalignment through the upper part of the cervical spine. The baby might not want to turn the head both ways. And as we get a little bit deeper and talk a little bit more about the function of the regulatory process of the body with feeding and digestion, those are also things that we'll see too. They have sleep disturbances or sleep disorders. I'm crossing my fingers that when we have our baby in a couple months that it's just gonna sleep 12 hours and sleep all the time, kind of be like our dog, but I know that's not gonna be the case. So we'll be experiencing that too. Reflux, colic, and constipation. As I was just saying a second ago, that digestive process is important. And if the part of the nervous system that is controlling those regulatory processes isn't happy, it's really hard for those systems to work like they're supposed to. Oftentimes we'll see torticollis, plagiocephaly, or shoulder dystocia, and those are just pretty much straight up from physical, that physical oomph, that long labor, that difficulty. Those are gonna be those physical manifestations that we see with baby. We also see things from birth trauma like cerebral palsy on the more severe cases, or epilepsy and seizures. And then a lot of times, and I've done a lot of research into looking at this, specifically looking at cesarean rates being like 31 or 32% of all births in 2019 and 2020. That's a lot. I'm not saying that they're objectively bad, but there is a lot of research that shows that there may be some heavier implications through that route. And sometimes we have to have them, I get that. But looking at sensory processing disorders, neurodevelopmental challenges, those things all have some common link. And a lot of that is, does the system process information in the correct way? Does it work in the brain like it's supposed to? And can we output it in the proper way? Or is there something there that's lessening that full expression to happen? Is there something that's kind of holding it back a little bit? In many cases, there's stuff we can do to help with there, and the little things that we can do in terms of the nervous system. It's kind of like taking a drop of dye and putting it in water. That small change that we start spreads out over time. That spreading out over time is going to be more of the system-wide effects that we can see in kids when we can give them a little bit of help. And then to get back to the mechanicals again, if we look at chronic ear infections, I talked a little bit about atlas a couple minutes ago, and that's that top bone in the neck. And when that misaligns or it has some rotation component to it, that can disturb the soft tissue around the eustachian tube. Eustachian tube is that duct down from the bottom of the ear that's going to help with drainage. And if there's some blockage there, that duct's not gonna drain very well, and we could have some immune response with that. But taking that physical obstruction away usually does a pretty good job. And there are a lot of case studies out there that have shown ear infections and chiropractic care go pretty well together. So then we can look at respiratory centers and immune challenges is also having some effect with the nervous system, and that does tie back in with birth trauma, to bring it all back to why we have this video. So being mostly physical in nature, what are some of the things that we can kind of key on and say, well, what does birth trauma come from? I know if my labor is not fun, it's probably a little traumatic. I get that. I don't know many people that have said, oh, my labor was a piece of cake, breeze, I do it again every day. It doesn't happen that way. Oftentimes if we have a really long delivery where you're really, really laboring, or a super, super fast, just shoot right through. Those are both terms and times where we can see some birth trauma occurring. Also, when there's use of assistant devices, so forceps, if they are going in and grasping on baby's head and down on the bottom of the neck, and I know they do their best to stabilize there, but when we get this pulling distraction, that's a lot different from the normal natural compression as the baby kind of comes down through the birth canal. And it's important to have that path down through the birth canal, number one, from the compression. That helps to kind of stimulate, wake up the nervous system, but it also has been shown in a couple studies that I've read of looking at helping to model early curves of the baby's spine as they grow and they develop, which is going to be something that later on gravity will take the work of, but that first initial bit's kind of a big deal. So the other things we can see, so if that distraction from forceps can be part of it, so can vacuum extraction. Kind of think about slapping that vacuum on top and giving it a pull out. That distraction, that distension can really put a lot of strain on the tissues in the upper part of the baby's neck and the cervical spine. And here's the wild thing is, if you have a newborn baby and you go to let your parents or your friends or your family hold the baby, what's the first thing you always say? Support the baby's neck, right? It's really interesting that in a lot of these cases, even when we look at some of these C-section births, that to get baby out, because time is going, we gotta go, that baby's head and neck are moving around here and there as the doctor gets them and navigates them out. And so the very first thing I think that would be really important as we're looking through this stuff is making sure that anything that's been traumatized, anything going on the top of that baby's cervical spine into that baby's nervous system, that should be checked out pretty quick after they're born, just to make sure everything's okay and working as it's supposed to. Kind of like we said, support that baby's neck, but let's make sure that baby's neck is looking pretty darn good, because not just the neck itself, but the nervous system underneath, which is so vitally important to all the other regulatory processes of the body, we're going to see effects there. We really are. Beyond those interventions, there's a couple of things you can kind of look for and say, well, these are some of the things I've experienced during my pregnancy. This is what I experienced during my delivery. Does this kind of put me in that could have been a little bit of birth trauma section? So use these as you can. Did you have a big old baby? Because that can be part of it. Not just for the baby, but for you too. Baby's positioning, the position of the baby as it comes through and starts to labor is number one, possibly going to be an indication for something like a C-section if we're in a breech or a frank breech. But just the amount of movement that we have to get done to get baby out, that can be part of it, which can lead us into either a long labor or, again, depending on position, super fast labor, super really fast shock to the body. Those are two things we can look for. Dysfunction of the bony ring of the pelvis. So mom, if while you're going through your pregnancy and we're getting up to the end of that pregnancy and you're just in a lot of pain, things just aren't moving right, you're feeling really stuck, that bony ring of the pelvis that moves, and when you are pregnant and you get to those last little phases and your body starts releasing relaxin, which is a hormone that helps you be a little more stretchy through the joints and through the soft tissue, then that's not working right, and that can be something that will challenge this pregnancy and can lead to a little bit of birth trauma. The other thing to remember is that nobody's fault these things happen, but what's important to think about is we're here to help them, to help you navigate your way through this. All right, so we got all our definitions out of the way, we got our what ifs, we got our predisposing factors, and a couple of the things that just kind of cause this stuff. So what's the why? What does this stuff cause? How does it cause? And I think that's where we just have to get to the important link of looking at the central nervous system. The causative factors here, if we look at the neurological pathways of systems that either work correctly or incorrectly, a lot of times we can link them together with the autonomic nervous system, or the part that you don't necessarily control. From a conscious perspective, that autonomic system is the thing that keeps you breathing, it keeps your heart beating, it keeps that sandwich, going through digestion while you're not thinking about it. And it's good that we don't have to think about these, because I can't ever find my keys in the morning, and if I had to remember to breathe, I wouldn't be here. We'd be in trouble. So, now we get to the part where let's take a second and ask ourselves, why? 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 Well, we see these effects because of the location and positioning of the most important structures in the body, that brain and the central nervous system. So if you remember back, or if you've been watching my videos, you'll know that by 5 weeks, you got the basis for a nervous system. If that nervous system's there, the rest is going to follow, and that nervous system is going to control all of the processes and growth and regulation in the body. How cool is that? That's a pretty cool thing in my book. But when the system isn't functioning 100%, that's when you can start to have the initial breakdowns of all the other regulatory processes throughout the system. And that's why it's important to look at that, to make sure that that central nervous system is functioning optimally and doesn't have any irritation, interference, blockage, obstruction, whatever the heck you want to call it. You know, it's important to define your terms, and we'll kind of talk about that. But essentially what happens when that nervous system's not functioning properly, we go into this state of being dysautonomia, which if you think about that and break it up a little bit, dys meaning bad, autonomia, the autonomic nervous system. If it's functioning in a state that's less than 100% optimal or less than 90% optimal, or it's just not doing very well, the regulatory process that it controls, they're not going to function like they're supposed to. It's not that they're going to shut off. It's not that, they're just going to fall apart, but things are going to not work in the most optimal way. And so let's just say digestion for one thing. If the unconscious innervation that goes to the muscular ring at the top of the stomach doesn't function properly, then that muscular ring at the top of the stomach may not close all the way. And if it does not close all the way and that stomach's moving around and trying to digest food, and some of the stomach acid or the contents gets out above that muscular ring, what do we have? We have reflux. And so it's not always the stomach that's the problem. It's not always that muscle is the problem that controls that ring, because I tell you what, that's smooth muscle. You can try all you want to contract your stomach and you can't do it. It does it on its own. But if we take and we look at the nerve supply that is basically controlling all of that, and you notice that the area of the nervous system is not functioning properly, where that nerve originates, it's going down and making that process work, and you help that to function properly, then a lot of times you get resolution downstream. Muscles are interesting because they know how to do one thing, and they know how to do it pretty darn good. They know how to contract. Muscles don't know how to relax. Muscles don't know how to stretch. Muscles don't know how to play backgammon. Muscles know how to contract. And that's because when they get an impulse from a nerve, it causes a process throughout the muscular cell to contract. And when that nerve is no longer signaling that muscle to contract, it stops, and that's it. There's not a relaxation process. There's not a relaxation signal. It's a presence of, hey, contract or don't contract, which is an interesting thing. I've always thought that was kind of interesting. All right, so hammering out a little bit more anatomy. We're going to talk about the vagus nerve. So the vagus nerve, it's getting some steam now. People are talking about the vagus nerve. They want to know what it does, how to make it better, how to make it do what it's supposed to do. So vagus is Latin for wandering, and it's aptly named because it comes off the brainstem, goes down the cervical spine, comes into the thoracic cavity, and then down into the abdominal cavity. And that vagus nerve is kind of like the mob. It's kind of like the mob in New York. It's got his fingers in everything. It's very important for the regulatory process of so many different systems. That vagus nerve is going to control heart rate. It's going to control breathing. It's going to control digestion. It's going to control immune function. It's going to control the way that we process social and emotional cues. And that's just the beginning of it. This is a very important nerve, and it's in that upper cervical spine area where you can have some irritation through it. So yeah, in Latin, wandering seems to fit. I kind of like to call it the air traffic control nerve, or the air traffic control center, because it's making sure that things are functioning properly. The biggest reason that it gets irritated in birth trauma is just simply because of where it lives. It comes out of that base of the brainstem, travels down the cervical spine, down the body. That's going to be an area that's going to be very delicate, especially as you're going through some of the different interventions that we talked about. Those are going to directly affect that area, and they can cause irritation there. And that's really the thing that we're looking for. We're looking for those areas of the nervous system that aren't functioning like they're supposed to. And we can measure that. We can pinpoint the locations or the regions of the central nervous system that don't do what they're supposed to. And our job is to detect, find those areas and care for them. So when we look at that and we see that, that's what we call subluxation. And I wrote a blog post on this a couple weeks ago, and people will say, well, I'm channeling my inner Hank Hill there. What? It's if you look on ChatGPT, it'll say, well, I don't know about that because Wikipedia said it's not well defined. Semantics aside, if you want to learn a little bit more about it, check my blog post out from a week or two ago. I'm not going to get too into details here, but essentially we look at misalignment, irritation, nerve dysfunction. You get those three things together, we can use the S word. Simply put, to wrap this up, because I don't think I'll be getting an hour and a half Netflix special off this one, but I'm really trying. Maybe we could put all these together and we'll get there someday. Simply put, we need these areas of the nervous system to function and work at 100%. And when that's doing that, our children and our kids and our families will have 100% of the normal function that they need coming through these systems and being expressed outwardly in their bodies. We are built to have resilient, adaptable, and neuroplastic or plastic moving, changing, evolving, growing nervous systems. And we should have that ability to change over time. And that's the great thing is, even though you may have sustained or your child may have sustained a significant or a small amount of birth trauma, the body grows and the body can be helped to fix those things. That self-healing, self-regulatory process that goes on deep within the nervous system it's fantastic. It's probably the coolest thing ever. And it's kind of one of my missions and goals is to help more people understand what we're truly capable of. That's some pretty cool stuff. I've seen so many cases with just amazing, indescribable even. Well, we could describe them because I have to for my notes, but unexpected, cool, great, life-changing outcomes. And it's because we're just letting the nervous system do what it's supposed to do. We're helping it get to that point. We're basically taking and we're removing the speed bumps. So if you had a difficult pregnancy, if you had a high-risk pregnancy, if you had a super fast or super slow labor, if your kids have trouble feeding, whether it's breastfeeding or reflux or taking a bottle, they have trouble pooping, if your kids are constipated, please give us a call. A 15-minute conversation could be a game changer for you and your family. Stay tuned. I'll have something new next week for you. Have a great week.